Awesome. Hello, good morning, good happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Cannabis Minority Report here at NCIA. My name is Mike Lomuto. I'm the DEI manager at the NCIA. The Cannabis Minority Report is a platform for global majority, aka minority voices in the industry, part of NCIA's ongoing commitment to our DEI program and creating greater diversity, equity, and inclusion in the industry. Each week, we sit down with a conversation with an inspiring cannabineur of color and report on the news, providing our take on headlines and highlighting interesting stories we'd like to see or like to share. Season 4, we're brand new to LinkedIn Live. This is our 3rd episode now on the platform. So we hope that you're enjoying the new platform here. We realize that a lot of our fans and our network and our community is based here on LinkedIn. So we figured why not bring podcast over here to the live format. So we have some great episodes coming up over the next several weeks. We will also be rolling out our new hosting format, which is going to be a co-hosting format. We'll have some rotating co-hosts. So stay tuned for that. I know that you're going to love some of these co-hosts that we'll have coming up in season 4. Today's guest, we have a great guest, Rebecca Colett, board member of NCIA, as well as the CEO of CALYXEUM in Michigan, and also the founder of the Detroit Cannabis Project. So we'll get to a much better introduction or more robust introduction in just a little bit. But first, we're going to get to our news stories. And Rebecca here, of course, you're welcome to weigh in on anything that you see fit. So starting with the news, well, we're going to start with some NCIA announcements, which is also news here at NCIA. This week, we have 2 podcasts coming up. So if you're listening to this as a recorded podcast, make sure to go back and check out our recorded webinars. If you are able to attend live, we have 2 great webinars coming up. I think I might say podcast. 2 great webinars coming up this week, Tuesday and Wednesday. Tuesdays is Gain an Edge and Make an Impact Community Benefit Agreements. So we'll be talking with Doug, Kelly, and Gary Little in Chicago, as well as a couple of members of our retail committee about really the impact that community benefit agreements can make. We hear all the time that, impact is something that has to be secondary to the bottom line. Well, these guys have gone ahead and shown that impact can be critical to the bottom line and really create, an improving bottom line. It's something we know from all the studies that are out there with B Corps and things of that nature, but it's great to see it actually happening in the cannabis industry, and we have some data now to show it. So that'll be tomorrow's Catalyst conversation on Tuesday. On Wednesday, our Catalyst conversation is going to be what's hot in 2023. We got a great lineup. Amy Larson, Jim Acoso, Vanessa Valdivinos, and Keaston Franklin. So really great lineup there. And we're just going to be talking about what's going on in 2023, what opportunities are around the corner, what kind of mindset do you have to succeed in this industry at this point in time. So make sure to tune in for those. The last thing I'll mention on NCAA announcements is that all month long, we're running a promotional campaign for our Lobby Days sponsorships. All sponsorships for Lobby Days this month go directly towards our DEI delegation, which is our way of making sure that we provide travel stipends to our DEI or equity scholarships to make sure that we have a greater voice and greater diversity in DC when we do our lobbying in May. So those are the NCAA announcements. And now I'll step into making sure we cover the news in the industry. So the first thing, which I'm curious to hear what Rebecca may have to say about a couple of these things, honestly. The first thing I want to mention here today is something that we mentioned a lot in season 3 was really the normalization that we're seeing, the mainstream normalization we're seeing in cannabis. Well, last week, one of the things that hit the regular news was that Twitter has gone ahead and said okay to cannabis advertising. So, and I thought an interesting press release that came out last week was that Trulieve, claiming to be the first cannabis company to launch their advertising campaigns on Twitter. And I'm not here to necessarily troll Trulieve. I don't really know anybody over there, so I don't know what their situation may be. What I do know is that their CEO's husband was sent to 3 years in a federal prison and a $1.25 million fine for a conviction on bribery charges in the state of Florida. What we do know in Florida is that there was a lot of bad players going on in the industry. And something that's always been interesting to me is that that's allowed to happen. Trulieve still exists. Where's the accountability, I guess you could say, that they're now the first company advertising on Twitter? It's just kind of an interesting situation. So what I'm curious about is also what's the next domino to fall? Which next social media platform is going to say yes to opening up for cannabis advertising? I don't know, Rebecca, you have any thoughts on that story before we move on to the next one?
The only thought is that I'm really excited about marketing marketing being available, more digital marketing being available to cannabis brands. It's very challenging doing marketing anyways. And on social media, it's very challenging. So to hear that news last week from Twitter was really a relief to people like me who have brands who are continuously trying to find creative ways to market our brands. We were really excited about Twitter really kind of being the first one to do something so daring. So hopefully we have some of the other big platforms follow suit.
Awesome. And one thing I'll say about that really sticks out from what you just said is, cannabis companies have had to be very creative. As you've done a really good job, great job with CALYXEUM. And so what I'm curious to see is, look, marketing is difficult as it is. Social media marketing is difficult as it is. We see constantly, all these ads and campaigns about how to do that properly. Cannabis companies have had to do that with their hands tied in so many ways. So I'm really curious to see once these floodgates open, all these creative people in cannabis, creative brands like CALYXEUM, being able to take advantage of now a free runway, an open runway, and still taking that same creativity, that same innovation, and applying it to these platforms. I think that we're going to see some amazing campaigns unfold over the next several months and beyond. So stay tuned for that, and keep your eyes open on Twitter, and hopefully some other platforms soon too. Um, so the next story I wanted to touch base on is regarding. So this came out. I saw this on Beard Brothers, and Beard Brothers is a great news source for those of you that don't follow Beard Brothers already. By the way, they're on several different platforms. Have a great news feed. But they report on the fact that California awards 2023 funds for local marijuana equity grant program. And so $15 million in grants awarded for third year running. California continues to lead the charge in supporting small and social equity businesses in this capacity. Something that they pointed out is that a program of this sort eases inclusion into the industry, assists and keeps businesses safe. Its support has been crucial for many small businesses, enabling them to stay afloat in a highly competitive industry they would otherwise be trampled in. And while I will say that, yes, it definitely eases it, and it definitely makes an impact and a difference for some of these businesses that receive these grants and loans, it's still very new. It's still very challenging. Some of these companies have struggled to not only get the grants in the first place, but then use the grants properly, get reimbursed properly, and so on and so forth. So we need to keep putting pressure on these, on the grant programs, the people administering the grants, the oversight of the grants, to not only fund them even better, because $15 million in grants at the end of the day for all of the social equity initiatives and businesses and programs in the entire state, not really that much money at the end of the day. It goes pretty quickly, especially when you see certain companies getting $15 million in investment, period, just for one company, in the private sector. So public money is great and all, but there's definitely a lot of other ways we need to be able to raise capital in this industry, which is one of the reasons why we're pushing for the Safe Banking Act here at NCIA on a regular basis, because we know the more avenues we have, the more access we have to capital, the more inclusive the industry can become. So moving on to the next story, something else I wanted to mention here, and this is just my opinion on this, right? And making sure that a lot of the stuff we put on here, it's opinion, right? And it doesn't mean that the whole NCAA thinks this way or feels this way, although I know there's several members that probably do. So I saw a post the other day. David Jean-Jacques, the co-founder of the Big Hope Project, posted a New York Post or reposted a New York Post story. And the headline was Illegal Weed is Killing Licensed California Bud Shops. New York may be headed for similar fate. The article then goes on to say that high taxes, complex regulations, and the booming illegal trade have made it hard to turn a profit in the Golden State in California. The thing I want to point out here is that, yes, okay, in the article, they go ahead and say that it's high taxes and complex regulations, but they also still continue to point to the booming legal trade. And the headline also really focuses on the fact that it's illegal weed. And I get it. It's probably better for clickbait, for the fact that people aren't going to click on high taxes as easily as they are about legal weed. But I really hate, one, seeing the term illegal weed put out there, the illegal aspect. And the fact is, it's not because of the illegal weed that the regulated industry is failing or hurting in so many places. It's because of the high taxes, the overregulation, a lot of the bad players in the industry, whether it's because they don't pay their bills or because they lobby against equitable, regulations and policies. It's also because it's a brand new regulated industry coming out of prohibition. It's all of these things. I really hate seeing the legal, so-called illegal industry take so much of the hit. And it's not to say that there aren't bad players within that space, but I've seen a lot of bad players in the regulated space. And to point the finger at a whole sector, especially one that really, at the end of the day, is what kept the industry alive through prohibition, through decades, and kept the plants front and center. I don't like seeing that kind of stuff. So, not trying to bash the person that wrote the article, but just trying to bring some awareness and light to the fact that, we need to get away from this kind of dichotomy between illegal versus legal weed and recognize that a lot of us actually have walked in both worlds. And maybe sometimes there's a lot of people that still have to, just because regulations and taxes are so terrible. So anyway, that's our news for the day on that side of things. I do want to highlight a handful of companies, and because it's Black History Month specifically, I want to highlight a handful of Black-owned cannabis businesses. The first thing I want to, the first company is Next Level Edibles. So Anthony Jenkins, founder of Next Level Edibles, they have coconut oils and brown sugars that are infused. Really looking forward at becoming an ingredient company at the end of the day, I believe, is what their goal is. What I want to point out, though, is Anthony has been spent, I think I want to say 7, 8 years now on this path. And that's how long it's taken in California for him to be able to go from a legacy brand to a regulated operating brand, paying taxes, so on and so forth, doing it the right way, basically. Anthony also recently joined our manufacturing committee here at NCIA, and he also is a member of the Cannabis Wellness Coalition, a member of the planning committee, doing great work out in California as well as the rest of the country. So Anthony and Next Level Edibles, thanks for, no pun intended, or I guess pun intended, bringing things to the next level for us in the industry. Another company to highlight, and this is actually 5 companies we're highlighting here. Queen Mary has put forth a Black in Business box, cannabis box, that has multiple companies featured. Queen Mary, SF Roots, Dose of Saucy, Landrace Origins, and Farmer Don. All these are Black-owned brands out there in California. And so, it's great to see, and it's inspiring to see these different brands come together, of course, for Black History Month, but also hopefully we'll see a lot more collaborations and things like that coming from these really amazing industry leaders. Another thing to note is the Social Equity Symposium happening in Chicago on Tuesday, February 28th. So that's just next week. And it's being put on by the Social Equity Empowerment Network, SEEN, as well as the Illinois Independent Craft Growers Association. They present an evening of connecting with industry experts and gaining much needed insights and resources to aid in becoming operational. So if you're a social equity licensee or applicant out there in Illinois, definitely some folks to plug in with, a lot of great networking and really a lot of very like-minded people trying to figure out how do we make a better industry? How do we work together? How do we work collaboratively? So, Felicia is the founder of SEEN, is a new board member of the Minority Cannabis Business Association. So we're starting to see a lot more, collaboration between these different organizations, including our own, that are really committed to how do we create better equity in the industry. So that's the news for today. Let's see. Do we have our guest here, Rebecca, with us, ready to go? Yes, here we are. All right, awesome. Okay. So look, just to introduce Rebecca, I mentioned earlier, CEO, co-founder, I believe, of CALYXEUM, the founder of the Detroit Cannabis Project, which is I think the best way to put it is really, I think it's technically an incubator, but really a community of businesses that support one another, provide a lot of great business support and a lot of great advice and insights and guidance to and advocacy really for the equity and legacy brands and businesses in Detroit, where we've seen a lot of shenanigans, so to speak, with the way that the rollout has happened. I think the Detroit Cannabis Project, not only from Rebecca, but also know a lot of people that have gone through the program, that are part of the program, has done a lot of great work to really advocate for and make sure that there's a central voice and a central place that these brands and companies can still connect and work together. And Rebecca is also one of our NCIA board members, so I've gotten the opportunity to work with Rebecca on these different matters. What I really appreciate about Rebecca these last couple of years of getting to work with her is, and you, I guess, because now you're on the show here, so you're not third party anymore. But what I've really enjoyed about working with you is just your commitment, your dedication, your passion to the industry, but also just on a regular basis, continuing to really hold everything accountable, right? Look at what matters here. What is the actual, we can talk all this talk, we can talk about all these different pieces, but what is the bottom line of something, right? And not necessarily bottom line necessarily meaning just profit and ROI, but bottom line meaning like, what are we really talking about? Are we really, what is the actual effect and the impact we're trying to have? So, Rebecca, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for everything you do. I know you're an inspiration to a lot of people in the industry, and definitely myself is included. So, so just really welcome to the show. Yeah, how are you doing? How's everything going with CALYXEUM?
Wow, Mike, what an amazing introduction. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. Hi guys out there. Wow, Mike. Wow, I feel like more special than I thought I was with your introduction. Well, hey guys, happy Monday. It's a good thing that it's Monday. I hope the sun is shining wherever you are. I'm calling in from Detroit, Michigan, my home, and also where our cannabis brand is based. CALYXEUM is a cultivation and processing brand. So basically, what that means is we grow weed and we also transition that weed into other beautiful products like pre rolls, edibles, and soon to be concentrates. We're in dispensaries across the state of Michigan and really excited about continuously growing a cannabis brand that is highlighting women of color and people of color. So yeah, really exciting. And Mike, to answer your question about like how things are going, they're going well. I know in a lot of states right now, especially people in Michigan, have talked about this interesting time in the market right now. There's like this supply and demand debate going on. Like there's too much inventory of flower, therefore the price of flower is continuously dropping and dropping and dropping. And then there's all these acquisitions and mergers, and people are like, what's going on in Michigan? At least for us, thankfully, we've been able to continuously grow our customers, grow our stores, and we just expanded to another cultivation facility right outside of Detroit. So we're really excited about expanding in a time where people are freaking out. And I think that really plays to the fact that we are really passionate about our niche, which is serving women of color and people of color and professionals with quality cannabis. And we do that well. And so if you do that well, you serve your niche well, you can continuously grow when things seem a little interesting in the market. So I wanted to touch on that too, because I know a frequently asked question is like, how things going in Michigan? And it is true, the price per pound and stuff like that has dropped in half in like a year. So it has definitely had very, very steep transitions over the last couple of years. But as for CALYXEUM, we are continuously, steadily growing slowly but surely. So I'm thankful.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. And I think that it's something that you hear a lot of people talk about this concept of niching down and serving a target market, and that's how you build a brand, right? But I think that the fact that you're on more shelves, that you are expanding, that you have more products coming out, really speaks to the fact that you've done it. So one of the things I think that speaks to this and speaks to the brand that you're speaking about is I've seen you posting recently about the swag that you guys offer, right? You all offer different hoodies and shirts and things of that nature. Yeah, there you go. What does that say right there?
Support Black growers. We have them in
Support
pins
Black
and hoodies
growers.
and shirts and hats. Yep,
Nice. Yeah, you have a few different things, right? You have the support Black growers and the invest in Black cannabis. Those are two that I know I've seen, right?
yep.
So how is that campaign working, and how has that helped you in building your brand?
Yeah, merch is an interesting thing. Like a lot of people on this podcast probably know, but I just want to remind people since cannabis is still federally illegal, a lot of us love it and a lot of us are in states where it's recreationally available, but on the federal level it's still a Schedule 1 narcotic, which is interesting. But it's still Schedule 1, and that allows a state licensed brand like CALYXEUM to only really operate and market to people with inside Michigan. However, being Black women, being cultivators, and also having a diverse team, we've been able to reach people outside of Michigan. And so we're like, well, we can't mail them no weed, but what can we do for them to support us and for them also to help us market our message? And that was merch. We've seen a lot of other bigger cannabis brands really expand into merch. And we wanted to do the same thing and specifically have a segment of our merch be what I like to call bold statements, which is a couple of ones you mentioned, like support Black growers, invest in Black cannabis. And another very popular one is buy weed from Black women. So we have very bold statements, and really, other than them being cute and nice to wear and also warm because we have hoodies, they're also bold statements, increasing diversity. And a lot of people I notice as an operator and a board member and a lot of stuff I do in cannabis space, a lot of everyday people are not aware of the diversity issues in the cannabis industry. They're not aware that Black people own 2%, or I think earlier I read a report, it was 1.7% of all licensed operations in the US, which is not even 2%. And Black women is even smaller than that. I posted a stat earlier today. Black women own 0.5% of all licensed operations. So really our merch is really bringing a lot of those statistics to the forefront in a bold but fashionable way. And it's been really cool to see people order our merch from around the country, Canada, and some people in the Netherlands I've seen have, ordered our hoodies to really spread that message of really increasing diversity in industry. Something I say all the time is diversity. A diverse cannabis industry is a better industry for everyone. So that's really the sentiment we carry out in our merch. And it's been going great.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing all that. And, on that last note, a diverse industry is better for everyone. Why? Why is a diverse industry better for everyone? In your words.
And yeah, from my perspective as an advocate, an entrepreneur, an operator, first, cannabis is not a white only plant, a male only plant. It's a plant in its core that bridges races, different people from different like economic backgrounds. Like cannabis is something is a common ground for everyone, and I think the industry should be reflective of one of the purposes of this healing plant. We should not ignore what the plant naturally does, and the plant naturally brings people together. It naturally brings people from different areas, different backgrounds, different neighborhoods together to have a good time, to get the munchies, to laugh, to relax. It brings people together. And I think the industry should be reflective of this powerful plant. This is why we're all in this industry, because of this plant. And I think oftentimes all this fancy stuff in the industry has forgotten the core of this cannabis plant. And then second, from an entrepreneur standpoint, I don't want to only hire people from one subset of humans. I want the availability of everybody, no matter if you're Black, white, purple, or orange. I want to be able to hire you. I don't want there to be any barriers to how diverse or how skilled our team can be. So that's another reason. Like, who wants to walk into a store or walk into a cultivation and they all look the same? Then that means everybody's going to think the same and they're going to produce the same. And this retail experience are going to be the same. Like, who wants that? So I think a diverse industry in regards to workforce also creates a diverse industry in regards to output. So experiences are diverse. Flower varieties are diverse. Edibles are diverse. Events are diverse. Consumption lounges are diverse because they're owned by different people who have different views.
I love that. And, you asked the question rhetorically, I know, but as far as, who doesn't want that, right? And I think that the answer to me, at least I see the answer as people that are scared, right? And it's a natural thing sometimes to be scared of the other or of what is unknown or what, the potential that we could reach if we were to go outside of our box. Those are normal, natural fears, and actually they probably have evolutionary basis to them. Yeah, I mean, we know they have evolutionary basis to them, right? Like you're out there, you're on the hunt, you see a creature that doesn't look like you, you're like, okay, maybe that could bite me or sting me or eat me. So I get that, right? But the problem is that we've taken that evolutionary basis and, systematically our societies teach us who is different and who is so different that we need to fear them. and their ideas and their thoughts and the things that come out of that. When you combine that with our fear that honestly, we have a fear of success in this country, right? A lot of people really fear success, what that really means. We all want the $1 million in the bank account. We all want the Maserati, whatever it may be. Not everybody wants those things, but whatever the things that people talk about wanting success. But then when it comes down to it, we're actually scared to go out there and be successful. And I think that diversity really leads to success, and it's a big part of why we're scared. You couple that with the fear we have in general, and I don't know. I think that So I know it was a rhetorical question, but I think that it's people that are afraid. And I think that's one of the things I love about CALYXEUM is that I don't see fear with you all. I'm not saying you don't have fear like any other entrepreneur that we, but I know that, I don't see the fear, right? And I think that's something that I see a lot in your posting, right? And the way you conduct yourself. How do you, bring to the table just positivity? You constantly bring positivity. It doesn't mean you're rosy eyed, but you bring positivity on a regular basis. How do you go about doing that?
Well, Mike, to be honest, as a woman and as a woman of color in cannabis and then in cultivation, we have no other choice but to one, be fearless, and two, remain positive. I could write a book, and one day I will, about the many challenges we've had of being, frauded, stolen from, talked about, called drug dealers in city meetings over and over and over again. But we have no choice to stop. Like, we don't have the choice. So many people are looking up to us, women, people of color, just regular. It doesn't matter. So many people are looking up to us like this is what they're doing. So we have no choice but to stop. And, many people out there maybe in the cannabis industry are just starting, and you're now maybe realizing that, dang, this is hard. Like, this not no little hill. This is a tall ass mountain that I have to crawl up. I'm getting tired. I'm winded. I need to take a break. I'm sweating. Like, this is a very, very challenging journey and a long journey. And once you realize that, to make your days better, to make your weeks better, positivity is really key. Because if you go into every day, every week, like, this sucks, then you're really not going to make it in the cannabis industry. I don't know if many people out there know, but this is not a get rich quick industry. There's a lot of political BS. There's a lot of a lot. So you have to, one, have passion for the plant, and two, you have to have the tenacity to keep going. And you have to have that positivity of like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm here on purpose. I'm going to keep going. Every day I'm going to wake up with a smile because I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. Yeah, I thought it was going to take a year and it's year 3, but I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. So I'm gonna remain positive about it. That's really the only way to really persist in the long term.
I love it. I love it. I'm laughing over because I love it. These things seem like such simple truths, and they are really simple truths. And at the same time, people really struggle with it, right? I mean, people do struggle to get out of bed and have that positivity. So it's great to hear from you, somebody that has been doing this and pushing forward and making progress. And I got to say, when I see your wins, I know that that's wins for a lot of people, right? Because it means that a lot of people that are following on your coattails, or I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, following on the fact that you're blazing the trail, and some folks are behind you saying, okay, well, how do I get in now too? How do I do that? And right there, I think is so key. Keep that positive mindset, keep that positivity flowing, because it is hard, and you have to be tenacious. It is not overnight. Even when we talk about like things like the gold rush in California in the 1840s and 50s or so, people don't necessarily realize or think about the fact that there was also 90 something percent of people that went out there for that didn't make it. And when I say didn't make it back then, just end up straight dead, disappeared, right? Don't even know where they end up went to. They might have, fallen off in the middle of the Sierra Nevadas, for example, right? And cannabis, it's not a lot different in a lot of ways, right? And so on that note, one of the things that you've done is you founded the Detroit Cannabis Project. And Detroit Cannabis Project is something that, is designed for exactly that, right? To help other people come along too and learn from, your trail that you're blazing and the mistakes you've made. Can you tell us about the Detroit Cannabis Project and kind of, where are you at? What's the status of the program right now?
Yes, of course. DCP, the Detroit Cannabis Project is a social equity incubator, and we focus on technical cannabis business topics. Um, we started DCP really because I was going to conferences, and then when I became an operator, I was going to meetings, and I was oftentimes the only one or one of three. And it was just very annoying. It was just very annoying to continuously go into rooms and people stare at me like, who is she? Why is she in here? And I was just so tired of it. And then secondly, I was so tired of these big cannabis companies who are multi-state and multi-country, and some entertainers out there continuously preaching, oh, we're going to increase equity. We're going to fix the problem, or we're going to help. And as an operator, the one actually in the streets, I'm like, you're going to help what? I haven't seen you do anything. And this is year three. You said this 3 years ago. So I haven't seen anything. And so after like those 2 points, my team and I was like, you know what? Like a lot of things, if people not going to do it, we're going to do it ourselves. We're going to do it right, and we're going to make an impact. So we created a curriculum to on three different levels. One is to help people understand the cannabis supply chain, the different license types, and how they work. So regulations one-on-one, because a lot of people don't even understand what the licenses are and what they do and how you even go about submitting an application. And then second, we talk about all back-end cannabis topics, operational topics, SOPs, 280E, cannabis marketing, those nuances, human resources, how to build a team, different roles you should look at how to build a team, how to raise money, how to write a pitch deck, how to write a business plan, how to write financial performance. So as an operator and also as a business owner, like before cannabis, I saw all these gaps with people who looked like me. Like they had the desire to enter the cannabis industry, but they didn't have those like tangible skills of like their business plan was accurate, or they knew how to write financial projections. And I'm like, this should not be a hiccup to why they can't open a cannabis business. So that's really what our platform and curriculum is about, is bridging that educational gap on those operationals. You should not be allowed to open a cannabis business because you don't know how to write SOPs. Like that should not be the reason you don't get to be an operator. So let's help you with that if you have that great idea that could help change the cannabis industry. So yeah, this is year three of DCP. I never thought that it would grow as big as it's grown, but we've been able to educate around 350 Michigan social equity entrepreneurs from around the state. Majority of them are in the Detroit metro area. We are in contract with the city of Detroit. We're their official technical assistance provider, meaning if you are a diverse social equity applicant, entrepreneur, you can come to our classes for free to help you either with your license application or just for you to gain general knowledge about cannabis business. And this year, we are expanding outside of Michigan to the West Coast. And I'm really excited to soon announce it officially. But yeah, like I said, we first had to show people how to do it and then do it right. And now we're going to replicate and help other people replicate a lot of the positive wins that we've seen here in Michigan.
Awesome. I mean, it's been really inspiring to see the growth of the program. I know, like, I think I mentioned this earlier, but, some of our really, when I say strong leaders, I mean leaders that have learned a lot from your program and also really give a damn about others here at the organization and about the industry and have real passion for the plant. A lot of them have come through the Detroit Cannabis Project. That's how they found out about us, and that's how they now are really, strong leaders within our organization. So I know firsthand that the folks coming through that program are getting a lot out of it, and that they're really good people as well. And I think going to make this industry so much stronger in the long run and in the short run too, especially once we see a lot of the licensing snafus and capital raising issues clearing up over time. And it's things like the Detroit Cannabis Project that are going to help us do that. Definitely curious to know. Definitely let us know about when you can make the West Coast announcement. And look, any way that as we talked before, any way that the DEI program and what we're doing here at NCA can support and collaborate on those kinds of things, definitely let us know because we want to see this expand out. So, absolutely. Um, so, I had a couple other things I want to ask you. You mentioned capital raising, and another area that CALYXEUM has been trailblazing is in the crowdfunding space with cannabis. You guys did a campaign on MainVest recently. I'm pretty sure it was MainVest. Can you tell us about that experience and really just even what MainVest is? Because I think most people don't even realize this is an option for them in the first place. So yeah, can you tell us what MainVest is and what your experience was like?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. We completed a crowdfunding raise with MainVest, and MainVest is a regulated crowdfunding platform that does accept plant touching cannabis businesses. Crowdfunding is very challenging, again, because cannabis is a Schedule One narcotic that we can't utilize other very successful crowdfunding platforms like Start Engine or Kickstarter if you are a plant touching cannabis business. But MainVest has been one of those trailblazing platforms to allow cultivators, potential retailers, plant touching businesses to start projects on that platform. We completed a raise last year that was pretty successful. We at least reached our goal, but we learned a lot. We learned a lot from, a lot of the money that you do raise, you're going to have to invest back into the campaign to do sorts of marketing so you can reach more people because crowdfunding is raising from the crowd. So the more people or the more quality investors you reach is really how successful your campaign can be. So we learned a lot, and we're actually launching a new round very soon in March. So we're really excited to do it again and to implement a lot of the learnings that we learned last time, but also to encourage, people who may be scared to invest in the cannabis industry. We're also trying to encourage and increase education to the cannabis industry. I think a lot of people are just, I think like you mentioned earlier, Mike, people are just like afraid, yeah, they're afraid of success, but a lot of people are also just, afraid of the cannabis industry. They view it as a very high risky investment. They don't know what's going to happen to their money. They can't see it. So we really also want to be seen as a brand that kind of takes you behind the scene. Like we're taking you behind the scenes of us expanding to another cultivation. We're taking behind the scenes of us building DCP or raising money. And a lot of these bigger brands, like you don't even know how they got to the size they got to. You don't know who owns them. You don't know if they got VC money or they got their daddy's money. You don't know anything. And so one of the things that we're trying to do in the cannabis industry in general is like really take people behind this black curtain, because behind that black curtain is a lot of best practices that could help people and definitely could help diversity in the industry. If we just knew, you know, those little nuances behind the curtain. I just call it this curtain because before I was in the industry, I didn't know it existed. And then I got into the industry. I'm like, dang, it's really different back here. This is not how it look on Instagram. It's really different back here in the industry. So yeah, we're really trying to like expose that to really help share knowledge, really.
No, I appreciate that. I'm a big fan of crowdfunding, and I think that crowdfunding, in my opinion, is really the future of Main Street business. Is a way that when I believe that Mainvest operates under Title III of the Jobs Act, and the Jobs Act came out of the last time that our country went through like a big recession, which was in 2008, I believe, and Title III came out of that. And the whole point was, look, we need to make sure that there's viable options for people to be able to invest and be able to receive investment. And it's not just to be able to receive investment, it's also, to your point, to be able to invest. A lot of people don't realize you can't invest in a lot of companies that are out there unless if you have access to IPOs and certain types of brokerages and stuff of that nature. So the concept of wanting to be Main Street and get your community to invest, it's not even that available to people until Title III of the Jobs Act came out a few years back. And they've been expanding that now so that people can invest, whether it's equity or debt, in companies, not just cannabis, but all types of small businesses. I think that this is the way that we create this movement, right? Because one of the stats that I read a book called "Raising Money on Your Own Terms" by Jenny Kassan. Jenny was one of the attorneys that helped with pushing the Jobs Act through. I actually, we worked with her on something we did a few years back. And what I learned more than anything else was that, look, most people actually are investors of some capacity, but most people don't even know where their money is. To your point, it's in some some fund, some mutual funds, some CDs, whatever it is, and where does that money go? But in fact, most of the country is driven by small business. There's a big disconnect between the fact that small businesses don't really have access to be able to raise capital properly or know how to do it right. And at the same time, most people are investing and looking for investment opportunities. So I think that crowdfunding has a great way, a great future for it. I think we're just at the beginning of this, honestly. And I really appreciate that CALYXEUM has taken the lead and taken this charge in the cannabis space of that. Um, Another thing I'll throw out there is that I've always seen crowdfunding as it's basically a marketing campaign to get paid for. And so it's a way to focalize and really crystallize a lot of your thoughts. You mentioned that some of the things you learned was you learned a lot from this last campaign. If there was one thing that you were going to say to somebody that was going ahead and going to go do Mainvest, what would be the one thing you would say to them to caution or be ready for?
Okay, I may have to do one or two things.
Okay.
One of the things is to really learn how to tell your story in a concise way that people understand. We talk a lot to our students about this in DCP, and I talk a lot about it on my own Instagram, but like, why are you unique? Like, can you say that in a minute or two, where somebody on the other side of the screen can be like, oh, I understand. Like, why are you unique? People, even beyond the cannabis industry, everybody raising money. It's a challenging time also to raise money just with the markets and the economy, but everybody in every industry is raising money. So specifically in the cannabis industry, like, why are you unique? Your product or service, can you quickly tell someone what that does, what it is? I think that's a challenging thing. Just, with looking at our campaign and looking at other campaigns that we were more successful, like comparing cannabis campaigns, we are a little bit more successful than some of them. Because when I looked on their page, I, as a viewer, couldn't understand what they did, who they were, and what they want to do. I couldn't understand it. It was too kind of confusing. So make sure you know how to tell that, but in a clear and concise way. And then
Appreciate that.
secondly is, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just to say real quick. So if you're watching or listening to this right now, go back to the beginning of our conversation, and that's exactly what Rebecca did. Rebecca basically said in 1 minute or less what made CALYXEUM unique, like who you are, what you stand for, why you're here, what makes you different. Something also to point out there is what makes you unique is not that you grow fire bud, right? Not that you have the best gummies, right? These are things that people look at when people say this all the time. I hear this all the time. I ask somebody, what makes you unique? I'll have the best bud. I have the best genetics. It's like, okay, cool. Everybody, like, you said something right now that was so key. It's not just in a way that makes sense to you as the entrepreneur, but that makes sense to the person that is reading that and viewing that. Run that by a bunch of folks that aren't in your echo chamber, that aren't the people that are smoking your bud saying this is great bud, and figure out now, how do you make yourself unique? What makes you truly unique to somebody else that doesn't know you? So anyway, just wanted to throw out that because I think that was a great point that you made. I wanted to just re-emphasize it. So I'm sorry. So number two, you had number two.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw a little bonus in there. So, my episode can be one of the most favorite episodes because I'm throwing bonuses in there. A bonus is marketing. I mentioned when we start talking about crowdfunding that plant touching businesses can't have campaigns on some of the bigger platforms like the start engines, the Kickstarters that have huge email lists, that have huge groups of investors that just watch projects on those platforms. These smaller cannabis crowdfunding platforms, Mainvest is one of the few of them, they don't have the same outreach that those other platforms do. Therefore, you have to do a lot of that on your own. So develop your outreach strategy, whatever that's going to be. It's probably going to be a combination of a different set of marketing tactics, but develop that. Just don't, start a page, start a project on, for instance, Mainvest, and just expect people to find it. because they won't. So develop a strategy on how to get that project out there so people can first find it. And then when they find it, make sure that the page and the story is concise and unique enough that they then want to invest. But they first have to find you.
Awesome. Great advice. Great advice. I've seen so many campaigns fail on many different platforms, even the big platforms that have big audience for exactly that reason, because people just expect that to happen. There's a platform that I used a few years back. They actually made you get your first handful of investors first before you then branched out to their whole audience because they want to make sure you were doing that work. Otherwise, what's the point? So anyway, no, great point. So we're going to go ahead and take a break here. When we get back, we're going to go ahead and play our game today, which we're still looking for a name for. If anybody has a better name than Quick Question, I know, come on, somebody out there has to have a better name than Quick Question. So, whatever, check out the game. Tell us what name you think it should be. We're going to be right back with this game with Rebecca Colett here. And we'll be on for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. Vince, take us away.
Well, here at the National Cannabis Industry Association, we have proudly represented small businesses across the cannabis industry since 2010. We represent Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. We have come so far in this fight to legalize cannabis that it seems that it's almost inevitable, and we're the ones making sure that as those rules are written, they favor small businesses, mom and pop operators, and Main Street cannabis, not Wall Street cannabis. In addition to making sure that your voice is heard at the federal level, being a member of NCIA also means building a vibrant community of small business owners within the cannabis space. Because we can always learn so much better by working together, learning from our mistakes and our successes, and building this industry together. So if you're interested in making sure that small businesses and Main Street cannabis has a seat at the table, be sure to join NCIA at thecannabisindustry.org.
All right, welcome back for our game segment with Rebecca Colett. Quick question. So we'll get to that in just a second. Before I do, there was a lot of stuff that, of course, we just didn't get to talk about today. Definitely going to want to have you back on here at some point in time. I really want to talk to you about your experience as a board member at NCAA and what that whole journey has been like. I know that, we've had a lot of deep conversations over the last couple of years about just how to, positively impact the organization, handle some of the challenges that we've seen. So I definitely want to have that conversation at some point with you for sure in front of everybody else so they can understand kind of the processes that it takes to really create what we're doing here and why we're doing it, right? And then it's not just some flash in the pan, the work that we're doing. So that's one thing for sure. The other thing I definitely also should have mentioned, and will mention now, is that we are hoping to be able to make it out to, when I say we, the Equity Workshop Tour for NCIA. That's NCIA's, our live workshops that we do with our equity members. We're hoping to be able to make it out to Detroit this year and do kind of a follow-up to the one that we did a couple of years ago at the conference with you, Rebecca, which was amazing. Again, your DCP folks, a lot of them showed up and it was amazing. You brought some panelists from the office of whatever the Office of Cannabis was called out there in Detroit. And we did some great motivational speaking. And, it was just, Khadijah Adams gave like a 10 to 15 minute motivational talk at one point during that. And it was, anybody that's ever been privy to getting to experience a motivational speech with Khadijah Adams, and that was just a small one. It was moving. There were people that told me afterwards that it just changed their whole perspective on everything. So really hoping that we can get something on the books out there in May, but more to follow on that. So now we're going to, and we do have a quick question, or not a quick question in the game, but a quick question from the audience. So Jonathan Pollock asks, Ms. Colett, what would you like to see in the industry in the next year? So before we get to our game, what would you like to see in the industry in the next year?
What a great question. Two things. One thing. One, more diversity. I really need to see more women when I go into these facilities, and I need to see more people of color. I go into facilities all the time. That's my job, to go to other cultivations, to go to other retails. And inside the facilities, not like, bud tenders, but inside the facilities, people with scrubs on and stuff, the diversity is very, very rare. So I really, really would love to just this time next year go into a manufacturer facility where they making edibles and all type of great concentrates, and seeing some women of color working those machines, seeing some women working those machines, seeing some men of color working those machines. So I really am excited about diversity in that aspect.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that, that's going to start at the top, right? It's going to start with making sure that executive leadership teams are more diverse. It's going to make sure that, we see more people who are being able to get licenses in the first place, being able to start and found companies, being able to get them funded. Because at the end of the day, look, tokenism is a real thing in the world, and it's what happens when you have, leadership that is dominantly one type of, society, one sector of society, one race, whatever it may be. And then the hiring practices kind of follow that, right? And they may end up having one person on their staff or on their executive team that fits a certain bill, but it's not going to filter down to the rest of the team. So definitely want to see that happen. I couldn't agree with you more. So now it's time for our game quick question. I got two quick questions for you. So the first question, because of course we've talked about this already today. Anyone familiar with CALYXEUM, of course, knows that you've been creating a distinct brand, right? And so like these other brands, like as you mentioned, Cookies has done this. You all are doing this now with the merchandise. So the question here is, which recreational state does not allow cannabis brands to print their own merchandise? So which recreational state do you not even actually be able to do this in, depending on, where you are? So we have Nevada, Florida, Massachusetts, or New York. Which state does not allow you to print your own merchandise?
Florida? You said which
I mean,
recreational state? And I'm like,
which
Florida
recreational
is
state?
not rec yet, right? So that's why I chose it. But I'm
Sorry,
guessing by
yeah.
your reaction that I was wrong. So which one is
It's wrong, but we're also wrong in our question. And this, like I said, Rebecca's going to always call you out and make sure, like, wait a minute, hold on. So bottom line, what are we talking about here? No, so actually, the answer is Massachusetts. In the state of Massachusetts, dispensaries aren't allowed to produce or sell novelty or promotional items, including T-shirts and other apparel. So the state of Massachusetts does not allow you to sell, would not allow you to sell a sweatshirt saying, buy weed from Black women. And that's something that I think they probably need to change for many reasons. Because one, why wouldn't you be able to sell a sweatshirt that says "buy weed from Black women," especially in a place where you are buying weed? And in the state of Massachusetts, probably not from enough Black women. So, anyway, just my 2 cents on that one. All right, the next question I have here is: marketing marijuana is undeniably one of the most difficult things about operating in our space. A product that the undeniable majority want, and businesses are constantly restricted in how they can get it in front of their customers. While shining a light on your product is marketing 101, one state made doing exactly that against the law. Which state does not allow dispensaries to use illuminated signs? So which of these states does not allow dispensaries to use illuminated signs? New Mexico, Arkansas, Connecticut, or Washington?
Connecticut?
You got it. Absolutely. Yeah, you got it. New
Because
England,
I'm like,
we're
that's
kind of
near
shining a bad
Mass,
light on
and
you.
Mass is on that
Yeah.
BS. So I'm like,
Yep.
it gotta be
Yep.
near them.
That's what it came out with today. Yeah, New England not looking great in the marketing side of things. They do not allow their medical marijuana dispensaries to have illuminated signs. I mean, again, Vince, appreciate all these questions. Vince, shout out to our show producer, Vince Chandler, by the way, amazing show producer, as everybody that's come through here knows, and everybody that watches knows. But yeah, I mean, New England, come on, you can't sell sweatshirts and you can't light up your signs. All right, it's already hard enough as it is, as we've talked about before. I mean, Twitter can't be the only one that goes ahead and says, let's figure out how to make this work. So Rebecca, really appreciate the conversation today. Really appreciate everything you're doing here in the industry. Um, hopefully we'll get to have you back here at some point in time. And either way, definitely look forward to continue to plug in with you and just keep an eye on everything that CALYXEUM is doing. If you are out there and you're watching this episode, make sure you go and you follow CALYXEUM on all the different platforms. I know you guys are active on these different platforms. So definitely, you get some great insights into how cannabis brands are built and how companies are built. As you've heard here, Rebecca isn't one of these people that's a gatekeeper to the knowledge and the education, but really looking forward to how do we build this ecosystem together. Definitely check these things out, check out these platforms. In the meantime, as I mentioned earlier, NCIA, our DEI program, we're rolling out some really interesting and unique promotional programs over the next several months. And this month, as I mentioned, Lobby Days, our DEI delegation, we're right now currently raising sponsorship for. So if you're a company that's interested in supporting not only responsible legislation in the country, which is what we are advocating for here at NCIA, but also diverse and equitable and inclusive legislation, please go ahead and, to Rebecca's point earlier, stop just talking about it, right? And look, if you're already doing something, you're already throwing some money down, I'm not talking to you guys, right? I'm talking to the companies out there that are on the fence, know they should be doing something, said something 2 years ago, did a whole bunch of stuff on Black History Month last year and the year before when it was really hot and hip to do so. But this month, the budget just can't be found. So just saying out there, look, it doesn't have to always, it doesn't have to go towards us, right? But do something more impactful than just simply making a post every now and again that makes you seem like you give a damn and makes it seem like you care and understand equity in this industry, and really put your money and your time and your efforts and your resources where your mouth is. That's how we create a better industry. That's how we get more diverse. And really, as Rebecca said earlier today, that's how we make a better industry that's diverse for everybody and better for everybody, because we don't want boring, not in cannabis. That's not why we're here, right? We're here for a better life, a better world. So I'll get off my soapbox now. Really appreciate everybody here with us. Rebecca, thanks again for joining us. Any last thoughts before we go ahead and cut out here today?
Okay, real quick, because you mentioned the whole, I'm on the board of the NCIA as a Black woman, which is like not that common. So, there's a lot of goals that I have of being a board member of the NCIA, but one of my main goals is to increase ownership and opportunity for women of color in the cannabis industry. We are oftentimes forgotten when it becomes, to the license side of the industry, the plant touching. So I really, really, one of my main goals of being this board member, which is kind of a spotlight type position, is really to increase awareness and education and access for my niche, which is women of color. Amongst many other goals that I have for the NCIA, I definitely wanted to mention that. And it's been a joy to be in this position. And I'm glad to have been reelected for 2 more years, because we got a lot more things to accomplish. So thank you guys for having me on today. Follow us everywhere on every platform. Thank you.
Awesome. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, because I'm not going to say anything better than that right now. So everybody have a great rest of your week, a great everything, and we'll talk soon and see you next Monday. Make sure to subscribe. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
The Cannabis Minority Report is a production of the National Cannabis Industry Association. Hosted by Mike Lomuto, directed by Vince Chandler. Our producers are Bethany Moore and Aaron Smith, and our executive producers are Vince Chandler and Mike Lomuto.